Okay, everybody. Hi, good morning. I guess good evening to you. I'm Gretchen Palmer, and some of you know me, and I know some of you. But for those of you who don't know me, I am good friends with Lars. I've known him since 2006, actually, when we went and sold church videos up in Idaho. And then he actually served a mission, an LDS mission with my husband from 2004 to 2006. So, and that was before I even knew my husband. So that's fun. And Lars has asked me to come and be a part of your team and help you as you build your doTERRA businesses and guide you and be a mentor and be a friend. So that's why I'm here. And we're so grateful that he is moving and all of those things. And once he gets settled, he will be back. But for now, you get me, which is great. Let's see, just some quick background. I grew up in San Diego, California, which is Southern California, and moved to Utah in 2004 when I was 22. Started school, graduated from school. I have my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in educational leadership and policy. So my training is in higher education, teaching, leadership, mentoring, all of those good things. And then I'm also a certified life coach. So I do that as well. And I am a wellness advocate and I share doTERRA as well. So um, the thing that I'm really passionate about when it comes to really anything in my life is helping people learn how to first notice their emotions. I guess I should say first, get out of survival mode. Second, notice their emotions. Third, learn how to process and feel those emotions in a safe place. And then fourth, learn how to change your thoughts, the thoughts that you have, so that you can get the results that you want in your life. I'm really passionate about that. And I feel like being a part of doTERRA and being with you guys in India, that allows me to fulfill my passion because I get to teach, I get to just do all of the things I love. And right, like I get to share these amazing products with people that can help them mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So I feel like it's just all come together. So with that brief-ish introduction, let's hop in. So today we're going to talk about oh, sorry, before I go on. So I taught this class last week in my home. I invited people over. I held 3 classes, had people over, and it just basically told them like, hey, I'm teaching a class on emotions and essential oils. Can you like this day, this time, can you come? And it was awesome. It was so fun. Mandy got to come over because I lived close to Mandy, and we got to do those classes together. But I also, part of this teaching is I want to show you guys how easy it is to hold classes in your home. Uh, and it's as easy as I'm I'm teaching about emotions and essential oils, right? Can you come? I find that in all the years that I've been involved with direct sales and network marketing, um, beating around the bush just makes me feel even more anxious. So um, I want you guys and I invite you guys to have these classes, find something that you're incredibly passionate about, that you can share with other people without even like prepping, and incorporate the essential oils into it, because that's how we're going to get these out to all of India. So and this is just the format that I used my class in, or that I set my class up, how I set my class up. And again, I just texted because I haven't quite gotten to like calling people on the phone, but I'm going to get there. Even I get scared, right? But I just texted and I said, can you come? And some people said yes, and some people said no, and some people said I'm not interested. And all of that was okay because the people who I needed to talk to came, which was so fun. So okay, let's go. Let's talk about emotions and essential oils. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Share. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so I'm gonna try and keep a time, keep a look on if people are coming through or anything like that. So I loved this little picture of the suckers with the little emotions on it, right? And it's interesting that like the red one with the sad face is separated because emotions aren't necessarily separated like this. We like to believe that they are, right? Like on my little diagram back here, we're taught that, excuse me, we're taught that there are good and bad emotions. And if we feel these bad, right, quote unquote, bad emotions, then that must mean something's wrong with us, right? And so I'm going to get into that as we go through this. But what we're really going to talk about is what emotions are, what we're taught about them, and where they really come from. Like, we're going to talk about what the truth is about our emotions and our feelings. We're going to talk about what happens when we avoid our emotions or try and hide or pretend they're not there. And I'm going to offer you guys a new way to think about these emotions. And then I'm going to offer you some tools on how making really small, tiny changes, the 1% changes in our lives, that's where we have big impacts, right? And it's tiny changes like talking to one person about, well, even smaller than that, right? Like using lavender to help you calm, right? Help you be calm. I'm going to smell some of it because it just smells so good. This is my favorite, like all-time go-to lavender. Oh, so good. Okay. And then we're going to talk about how using essential oils is a really easy and simple way. It's a simple tool for us to use when we're talking about our emotions, when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling sad, when we're feeling shame, right? When we're feeling all of those things, or when we want to like feel a bit more happy or joy. Teresa just told us how she used Motivate, right, during her event with the models, and that helped her, right? Like that helped pick her up. I just think that's awesome. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to try to pay attention to if people come on, but I don't really know if I can see that in the form that we're at. So, okay. So, I mean, I told you a little bit how I got here, but I'm going to talk about why I decided to really go all in a little bit, in a few slides, because I feel like that's important. It's been an important part of my journey. But I'll start out with this. So sorry, when I talk like this, my body's like, we need to yawn. So like I said, I grew up in California, in San Diego, Southern California. And I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was raised in the church. And when I graduated high school, I stopped going, and I started drinking and smoking and doing illicit drugs and things like that. And during that time, I gained about 50 pounds, and most of it was because of alcohol and late night fast food eating. but that's when I started to put on my weight. So like 19, 20, I started to put on weight. And then eventually I got to a point where I became an alcoholic and I was drinking every night, pretty much to like black out. And it became a big, big problem. And right around that time, my mom came to us kids. There's 5 of us, and said, "Hey, um, we're moving to Utah." So I had to make the decision on whether or not to come to Utah, and I did make that decision. Um, and it took me a while to actually like quit smoking and quit drinking, and but when I did, I didn't realize why I was doing those things, right? Like why I was reaching for a cigarette. Actually, I do know, because if any of you have ever been addicted to cigarettes, you know that you can only go like a certain amount of time without all of these emotions like boiling over, right? And for me, it was about 2 hours. And if I didn't have a cigarette about every 2 hours, which is a pack a day, which is 20 cigarettes a day, um, I would like boil over. Like I would just start crying, like uncontrollably crying. And it was like, I have to have that cigarette, right? And I was able to quit smoking. I was getting back into church and using the gum, using nicotine gum, using nicotine patches. But I also started reaching for food, right? Like using food as a coping mechanism, because there were these feelings that I had that were inside of me that I felt like they were so big that I just, if I felt them, I was gonna die. Um, and that's what it really, really felt like. And a lot of those emotions for me were shame, a lot of sadness, and I still like, I feel like all of the emotions that I feel, like sadness is the bottom one, right? Like there's a lot of sadness that I've processed over the last few years, um, and I'm still processing that sadness. But um, so I started using food to cope, right? Lots of chocolate, lots of pasta, lots of all the things that I love that are very highly processed and highly refined. And I tried everything I could to lose weight, like everything. I thought my weight was a problem. I thought I was unlovable. I thought I wasn't pretty. Um, and it also came from like years of being an alcoholic, like being in abusive relationships. And really, it was not wanting to be honest with myself about some of the things that I was capable of. And that brought a lot of shame and a lot of distrust and a lot of dishonesty with myself and with others. Um, and then fast forward 20 years, still dealing with all of these issues. But now I'm at a point where, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I lose weight? Like, I don't understand. I'm doing everything they say, right? Like, I'm eating all the foods that they say. I'm not eating the chocolate, right? But the underlying issue was I never faced those emotions, right? So when I would try a new fad diet, um, I would do really good for 2 weeks, but it was like I was like holding onto my steering wheel, like white knuckling it, like just trying to like push through. And it was about 10 days to 2 weeks where I would get through that, but then all of these emotions again would come up and start to boil over. And my cute brain, which I'm going to talk about that. Like my cute brain was like, we cannot, there are too many emotions for you to feel. And if she feels these, right? If you feel these, you're going to die. Like everything is going to shut down. You're not going to be able to function. And so that's the belief that I had. And I eventually found a program where I was able to lose 90 pounds, which was huge. At my heaviest, I was 257 pounds. I'm 5'5", so definitely obese. But I was able to lose 90 pounds. And during the course of about 10, let's see, I started August to June, May, June, I don't know, whatever that is, 10-ish months. over the course of that time, I thought I had like fixed the problem, right? Like my weight was coming off. I was feeling good about myself, all of those things. But what happened was when I lost that weight, I went right back to old habits, right? Like I hadn't dealt with the emotional side of my eating, right? Like I hadn't dealt with the fact that I had these emotions that I believed I couldn't feel. And so the fastest, quickest way I knew, because of my past, how to feel better was to reach for food. Also to like lay in my bed and be on my phone all day or watch Netflix all day, right? Like those are the ways that I had learned to cope. And I was in a state of just pure survival mode. Like I was checked out all the time, laying in my bed. Like it felt like I had to take a nap every day, because I just couldn't cope with anything. And of course that leads to other problems, right? Like it leads to me not being with my children when they're home. Like it leads to me, getting angry with them when they come in to like bother me, right? And so I'm going to end my story right there. I also want to say, yeah, I'm going to end that. I'm going to put a little pin in my story right there. So, we're going to move forward. I'm going to come back to this and talk about why these little oils right here, these little brown bottles have been, just amazing in my life. Such a blessing and such a gift. So, I guess I'll say this. I came into doTERRA. So sorry. After I lost those 90 pounds and I realized I was going back to the same habits, and I had all this like panic about gaining all of the weight back. Right. So I, not only was I like stressed out about all these emotions, like I was also like really panicked and really terrified of gaining all the weight back, which I did. I gained about 60 pounds back. But during that time, I was able to find a tool that I've used. And I'm going to teach you guys that, called the self-coaching model. And that was like the ticket for me to move past these like thoughts and feelings. And because of that, I became a life coach. And so I've started helping other people with this process, learning to love themselves, learning that they have value and worth no matter what, learning that they don't have to go find their value, right? They already have it. And because of this, Lars was approached by Mandy and John to start building doTERRA out in India. And he came to me and he was like, I'm not good at the teaching stuff and the like inspiration stuff, right? He's like, this is like right up your alley, right? You teach a stress management class at a local university. You do this in your life coaching. Will you come partner with me and teach, right? And so that's how I first got into doTERRA. I've used the oils for many, many years. But the idea of being a part of like a multi-level marketing company, like I was like, I'm not going to push product. I'm not going to sell this stuff, because I had PTSD from a previous program that I was a health coach for and all of that stuff. So that was in November. And so I got started in February with being a part of the India team. So that's where I'm going to stop. And then we're going to move forward. So let's talk about emotions. If there were people on here with me, I would ask you guys what emotions are. But I'm just seeing if anybody's trying to get on. Doesn't look like it. Okay, which is okay. So what are emotions? And this, I found this from Googling it. I just Googled it, and it says emotions are a complex experience of consciousness, bodily sensation, and behavior that reflects the personal significance of a thing, an event, or a state of affairs. And I want to just pay attention that emotions are both take place in our head and in our body. And I'm going to talk about this in just a minute. But why that's important to pay attention to. I want you to just pay attention to, it's not just one, we don't experience emotions in just one place, right? It's like a full body, right? Like mind, heart, gut, maybe even your gut sometimes. And we hold emotions in lots of different places in our bodies. For me, like I hold my emotions in my hips. And oftentimes that's like, if my kids are climbing on me, like that's the most sensitive part. Like it hurts for them to touch because again, there's so many emotions that I still need to process through. So, sorry, excuse me. What have we been taught about our emotions, right? Our feelings. And things that we're taught in America here is that that again, there are good and bad emotions, right? And some of those emotions, some of those good and bad emotions, I don't know where my pen went, right? Those good ones that we always have to strive for, right? Like being happy, right? Joy, right? Excited. What are some other ones that are, I've got this cool little thing, this little feelings guide. It's so fun. Yeah, loving, right? Like these are all the, like there's more, right? Grateful, inspired, happy, calm, focused, playful, right? Like these are all confident. These are all emotions that we're taught, like these are the emotions that we need to feel all the time, right? And if we feel anything other than this, that goes into this bad category, right? And some of those emotions, right? I talked about shame. Shame's a big one for me. Sadness, right? Loneliness. Some other ones are on here are confused. Powerless. Right? And what happens when we feel these emotions, these bad emotions, we start to believe that something's bad with us, right? Something's wrong with us. And we're also taught that other people or other things outside of us, and I think I've talked about this before in a different training, but we're doing it again. We're also taught that that it's other people, right? Or things outside of us that make us feel something. So for us, like for me growing up, it was like, I have a sister growing up, right? Like I don't know what she would do, but it was like, like she's making me mad. I see it with my son. I've got 3 boys. And my oldest son is like, he's annoying me, right? Like him singing is annoying me. Or he's on my blanket and he's making me mad, right? Because he's on my blanket. He went into my room and that makes me so angry. My oldest son has a lot of anger. Which totally sucks that we're taught that, because like that means that we aren't in control of us, right? Like if we believe that other people make us feel stuff, like that makes me feel so powerless. So other things that we're taught, I talked about this, like we aren't ever allowed to feel these bad emotions, right? And again, if these bad emotions ever come up, right, then something must be wrong with us. We eventually believe that something's wrong with us, right? And if something's wrong with us, then maybe that means I'm broken. And if I'm broken, then maybe that means I need to be fixed, right? And then we spend all of this time and energy and money on buying things outside of us to make us happy, right? For me, it was alcohol, chocolate, food, right? Amazon, buying stuff on Amazon, right? Like going on trips that I couldn't afford, all these things to make us happy, right? losing weight, losing 90 pounds because I thought it was the weight that was going to make me, I thought it was the weight that was making me sad and depressed. Right. But it wasn't. It's the things going on inside my head that's triggering and creating those emotions for me. And if we believe, like, if we believe enough that, or if we think that thought enough that like I'm broken, that's going to lead us down the road of like, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not thin enough, pretty enough, rich enough, right? Like, again, something's wrong with me. And all of that, like having those thoughts, all of those thoughts feel terrible, right? And especially like, I'm just going to focus in on shame, right? Like, if we believe that we're broken, right? Or if I believe that I'm broken, or that I'm only worthy when, right, I weigh a certain amount, right? Or my clothes are a certain size, right? Or, right, like I'm a blue diamond in doTERRA, right? Like if I have 10 people come to my meetings every time, right? Like if we believe those thoughts, that's gonna, and we don't, we, when we believe those thoughts, right, that I'm not good enough, pretty enough, rich enough, right, like all of those things, that leads us down a path because it feels terrible, right, to think and believe those things about us, right? And what happens eventually is we turn to negative coping skills. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's say I've done some pretty crazy things in my life. And oftentimes when I think about them, there's a lot of shame that comes up, right? And we have two parts to our brains that I'm going to talk about real quick. We have our the primitive part of our brain, or the subconscious part of our brain, and we have the prefrontal cortex. And this part of our brain, I like to call it our adult brain, our sophisticated brain, our evolved brain. This is is the part of the brain that makes us human, right? The prefrontal cortex, the adult brain, allows us to think about our thinking, right? That's the definition of metacognition, right? We can think about our thinking. We can make choices based on our thinking rather than like animals based on instinct. And that's what the prefrontal, or the subconscious, does. The subconscious creates, it's primitive, right? And so it reacts out of instinct. It's wired to be efficient, to keep us alive and safe, and to seek reward, right? And that worked really well when we were hunter gatherers, because we would be out hunting for food, or we would be sitting in our cave, right, or around the campfire with our tribe or whatever, and we would start to feel hunger, and our brain, right, our primitive brain is like, okay, get up, go out to eat. We know we're going to feel good when we eat, right? And then when we're out there, right, we come across, I don't know, a bear, right, or a tiger or a lion, and that primitive part of our brain, right, like it screams like danger, 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 right? And our fight and flight response kicks in, our stress response kicks in, and we can either fight, we either get ready for fighting, for fleeing, or for freezing, right, for going and hiding. But our primitive brain hasn't evolved with us as we have evolved, and so it thinks things like shame, sadness, loneliness, confusion, powerless, right? Those feelings, it thinks like sitting in traffic. Things like, I'm trying to think. My boss was mean to me at work. Like it thinks all of those things are the tigers in our lives, right? And so we're in this constant state of survival mode, of our stress response. And eventually we get to a place where we're on autopilot because it's too much for us to handle. And our primitive brain knows, right? It knows it can be efficient if it's in charge, because it knows, oh, if Gretchen feels shame, I'm going to tell her, right? I'm going to give her that thought, like, go eat something, right? Because shame feels terrible. And because that is a thought that I've had, and it's a well-worn path. And I know that chocolate, because it's highly processed, highly refined, that's going to give me that like waterfall of dopamine versus the mist of dopamine that I get when I eat whole foods and things like that. And it makes me feel good, right? But here's what happens. So I feel shame. My cute primitive brain is like, we can't feel shame. We're going to die. So what do I go do? Right? I go for some chocolate, right? But then I feel disappointed, right? I feel disappointed because maybe I told myself like I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to eat 10 Oreos today, right? And because disappointment is one of those bad emotions, right? I don't want to feel that. I can't feel that. And so I go and I do something else. Maybe I get on my phone and start playing games, right? But then eventually my kids come around and they start bothering me. Right? They start bothering me and I get angry, right? And I can't feel anger. And really what it is, it's like me, ouch. I'm trying to think what anger covers up. It's a lot of frustration, a lot of impatience. It's really me not having, like, dealing with the fact that, like, I can't deal with these kids right now, right? And so I get angry, right? And I don't want to feel angry because I've got to go take care of these kids and I don't want to take my anger out on these kids. So I go get more chocolate, right? But then what happens, right? I feel more shame, right? And then this cycle continues. And what happens, right, with this negative side is it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and growing. And what it creates is a lot of extra suffering for us. We put ourselves in a place where we start feeling all of these, or we start creating all of these extra bad emotions, which only compound on itself. And eventually we get out to a place where we're like so far away from the original, right? From these emotions that we believe we can't ever feel this. And we wake up one day thinking like, how did I get here? Like, what's wrong? Like, what happened? Right? But the truth is, the truth is, and this is what I want to offer you, right? Is that there's no such thing as good or bad emotions, right? Good or bad is attached to judgment, right? There's always a judgment attached to good or bad. But there are positive and negative emotions. Right? And we don't have to attach judgment to feeling these negative emotions or even these positive emotions. Like we're human, and the human experience is about feeling the negative and the positive, right? We can't know joy without pain, right? We can't know love without, I think the opposite of love is shame, right? Without shame. Like we don't know the good without the bad, right? We don't know the positive without the negative. But what ends up happening in our lives, because again, we believe that feeling these makes us a bad person, right? Or means there's something wrong with us. It means that we can't feel these things because we're unworthy, right? What happens is we end up living a life that's out of our control, right? Because we're never looking inward and never taking the time to process through these emotions. Some of us don't even know how. And we don't realize that the emotions that we feel are created from the thoughts inside our head, right? Our emotions come from our thoughts. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But something to remember about emotions are they're simply vibrations in our bodies, right? Emotions have vibrations, right? Because emotions deal with energy, and energy has a vibration. And that's one reason why these oils are so cool, is they have a vibrational level too. And so when we're feeling certain emotions, right? Like I'm going to look at this, right? I want to feel less, right? Like we'll say less anger, right? And what's that anger covering up, right? Like irritated, unforgiving, suppressed anger, defensive, resentful, femininity, angry, agitated, right? If I want to feel less of these, there's a, I don't have any of these. So let me go to what I do have. Balance. Let's do balance. Do I have balance here? Oh, I have balance, but I don't have it. No, I do have it. No, I don't. I don't have it right by me. Right? So anyway, so we're feeling anger. We want to feel less of that. These oils have a vibration to them that when we use them, like in, on, and around us, right? Like I'm smelling Aroma Touch right now, and it smells delicious, right? But when we smell them, when we use them, that allows our vibrations to raise to the vibrations of these energetically. And it allows us to just bring all of our energy up, which is so cool. And I have this little, like, I want to feel less, I want to feel more, right? So if we want to feel more peace, right, we can reach for Aroma Touch. We can reach for vetiver, which I am in love with. We can reach for serenity, peace, calmer, patchouli, right? Adaptive. All of those have been like what I've been attracted to lately. So, and these emotions can't hurt us, like, because it's energy, because it's vibrations in our body, they cannot hurt us. Our emotions come in waves of about 90 seconds. And so if we can get comfortable with feeling discomfort for about 90 seconds at a time, then we can process all of these emotions, right? And if we're way out here, we can start processing these emotions, because the only way to get to the positive side is to go through the negative. Welcome to the human experience. Our lives, right? We're here to feel all of the things. But again, we're taught that that's not okay. And that's one reason, like, I'm here is to teach, to help people learn this concept, is that emotions are part of our human experience. As a collective people, we all know what it feels like to feel sad or mad or love, right? Like joy, like we all know what that feels like. And in that way, we're all connected, which is really cool. And that's another part, right? Like that's another part of how we can deal with our emotions, is through connection. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys the self-coaching model and show you how it's our thoughts that create our results, and it's our thoughts that create our feelings instead of the outside circumstances. Okay, and this is the model that I use with my life coach clients. I'm attempting to teach my children this model, right? With my husband, of course, with myself, like I help you guys with it. So, okay. So we all have circumstances. That's what the C, right? Or situations in our lives. Let's see. I'm trying to just think of one. Weight's always the one that comes to mind, right? For me, because that's kind of what I focus on. Sorry, my brain just went blank. So we're just gonna use weight, if that's okay. So at my heaviest, right, I weighed 257 pounds. Okay, which do you guys use pounds or do you use kilograms? I don't know. Right? But I weighed 257 pounds. And the circumstances or the situations in our lives, like how we know that they're circumstances, it's their facts, right? This is something that I could prove in a court of law. When I went and stood on my scale, the number would come up, 257, right? And that would tell me everything that comprises of my body, right? The fat, the water, the blood vessels, right? The nervous system, the bones, the organs, right? My brain, all of those things are what made up this number. So circumstances are facts, things that we can prove in a court of law, and things that we all agree on, right? So when I weighed this and there were people around me, we could all agree that that's how much I weighed, how much my person, my body, my whole body weighed, right? And oftentimes what happens is when I would step on the scale and I would see this number, I would automatically feel something, right? And lots of times it was shame, right? Sometimes it was panic. Sometimes it was disappointment. I don't know if I ever spell that word right, right? What I don't realize is that there's a spot, a place in between the circumstance and the feeling, right? Or the stimulus and the response, like Stephen Covey teaches, that we have a thought, right? And it wasn't until I started to do this work that I realized that. But there's a thought that happens when I step on the scale and I see that number. And it happens so quickly because it's a thought that I've thought over and over and over and over again. I it's like milliseconds, right? Like step on the scale, see the number, think the thought, right? And then feel the feeling. But because I wasn't in tune with what this thought was, I just thought it was the number, right? Like I thought it was the fat on my body, right? That number that is causing me to feel shame, which isn't the truth. So, but the truth is I would have a thought about something, right? About that number. And it's the circumstances in our lives that trigger the thoughts. So, I feel shame. It's been a long time since I felt that and like had those thoughts. So let me just tap in real fast. One that kept coming up was like, I'm so gross. Right? And because I believed that that number, right? And of course, I'm only looking at that number as like the fat, right? So I'm not looking at it as like every single part of my body, my skin, right? My nails, my teeth, my tongue, right? Those things. But that's the belief that I had, right? And I'm gross. And because for me, this thought created this feeling of shame, right? And if we go back to a couple slides ago, like, again, shame is a bad feeling, right? We're taught that shame is a bad feeling, and we can't feel it. And that's the belief that I had, right? Like, I can't feel shame. And this also stems from like previous years growing up believing that I couldn't feel shame. And we're also taught that, like, suck it up, right? Stop crying. Don't feel that, right? And we're taught it in the media, like, buy this certain house, buy these products to feel this, and your life will look like this, right? And nobody shares the awful things in our lives on social media, right? It's all the good things. And then we believe, well, our life doesn't look like that. Our life doesn't look like theirs. And so again, something must be wrong with us. So we feel shame, right? I feel shame. And when I feel shame, that's when my subconscious kicks in and it's like, we can't feel that. And so the things that I would do, right? I would avoid, right? I would eat and overeat, right? But that only caused more feeling, right? Like more shame. I would try to ignore it. by like laying in my bed or being on my phone. I would disengage, right? I was checked out. I would check out, right? Like really just go into this place of like numbness, right? So I would numb again with like food, right? Naps, phone, right? Like literally I would shut myself in my room. Right? And all of these actions created a result in my life, right? And the result that I was creating in my life with this, give me just a second. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of how I want to word the result. Like what I created by doing these things is an empty life, right? Like I created a life that I believed could only be fixed by losing weight. What I also created, right, is because I would avoid it and go and eat, is I would gain more weight, right? I've gained weight. And then having this like result of an empty life and gaining more weight, right? Like all I'm doing is reinforcing this thought that I'm gross. And so every time I stepped on the scale, this is the thought that I think, right? This is one of them, which creates this feeling of shame, which causes me to go and do all these negative coping skills, right? But I continue to create a life that's empty, a life that feels out of control, a life that I believe isn't mine, which again reinforces. But something that I want to point out is like why this was so mind-blowing for me is it lays it out, right? So I can see it. Like I can see that this is a thought that I have. And when I get to a place where I'm not attaching judgment to this thought, like this is just a thought, right? Like thoughts are sentences that our brain creates in our head. And if we think those thoughts, right? If we believe those thoughts enough and think them enough, they become a pathway, a neural pathway, a well-worn one, right? And that becomes our belief, right? And then we've got all of these like negative belief systems, right? Like negative thoughts about ourselves, negative beliefs, negative core thoughts about ourselves, right? Which again feeds into all of these like negative emotions. And then there's judgment, we self-judge, right? And then because we don't want to do that, we don't want to feel this, we go and we do all of these things, right? But then we're in a place where we don't feel like we're in control, right? And we're not living the lives that we really want to live. So, if you have comments, questions on any of this, like please feel free to reach out. I wish more of you were here so we could have a dialogue. But this is a tool that you guys can use anytime in your life. And yeah, that's what this tool is. So I'm going to ask the question, like, how many of you have felt like that? Like you have these emotions inside of you and you're participating in negative coping skills, right? And you feel like you're in a place where like, I'm not in control of my life, right? Or the only thing I am in control of is, right, one aspect of my life, right? For me, it was eating. And because of that, I'm going to be out of control, right? Anybody? I know that a lot of the people I've come in contact with, like this is their experience. Like the idea of feeling our feelings can be really overwhelming. And And it can be. And anytime we feel that feeling of overwhelm, that always leads us to inaction. So, and I've talked about this a couple times through this, but I believed that if I felt these feelings, that I would die. And what our subconscious doesn't realize is by thinking those same thoughts, like the thoughts I'm gross, the belief I'm not blank enough, good enough, pretty enough, thin enough, rich enough, right? Handsome enough, strong enough, right? Whatever that is, like by us creating those negative coping skills, yes, we feel good in the moment, but like long term, the cost is that we're actually killing ourselves, right? Like if we're eating a lot of food, if we're not exercising, if we're laying in our beds all day, right? Like we're not out using our bodies, right? We're creating problems with our organs, with our heart, right? All of those things because we believe that feeling 90 seconds of shame is going to kill us. So that's that. Yeah, just gonna let you guys think on that for a second. I feel like we just have to think on that. Any thoughts on that? Any questions on that? So, and this is where essential oils comes in, right? Really for me, and like this is where I had my big like aha moment for me, is because I've spent 20 plus years using substances outside of me. And I know that this is something that's outside of me. I want to point that out. But I also know that like this, much like medicine, works within us. And it has a reaction. The chemical components of these oils has a like a physical reaction with our brain, much like when we drink or smoke or do drugs or eat or overeat or get overstimulated on Netflix. Like it all reacts with our brain in a certain way. But I realized that I'm on medication, right? Like I'm doing a lot of things, right? I go to a therapist, I'm on medication, I'm working with a doctor to balance my hormones, I'm exercising, right? I receive coaching, I offer coaching. I'm learning about how to feel my emotions, right? But I do suffer from depression. I suffer from it. I have depression. And I just noticed that like something was still missing. Like I always just felt like this heaviness, kind of like this, I guess, brain fog, kind of cloudiness was always just close by. And I was sitting, I went with Mandy to a training called Experience doTERRA. And my son also has ADHD. And he has, again, like I said, like a lot of anger issues. And anger is a secondary emotion. It's an emotion that's our brain believes is easier to feel than whatever's underneath that. So for me, it's like sadness, right? Like when I feel angry, I'm actually really feeling sadness. Um, and so my son's been on medication, right? Like legal speed for his ADHD, and he didn't want to keep taking it, which was fine. But he's still having these like anger outbursts at school. I'm still like laying in my bed, like not able to do anything. And I don't want to. Sorry, I don't want to keep adding on medication. I just like went up in one of my medications. But I don't want to keep doing that. Like, because I don't feel like it fixes the issue for a few weeks, but then I just feel like I'm right back to where I was, right? Like back into the survival mode, back into like the old habit of not processing through my emotions. And so, and reaching for the thing that I know is the simplest way or one of the easiest ways to feel better. But again, it's in the moment. So, um, I had surgery 8 weeks ago because I've lost again a lot of weight, and I have extra skin on my abdomen. It was hanging over and it was causing lots of medical issues, and it was really impending. That's not the right word. It was just really affecting my life, affecting my kids' life, affecting my husband's life, affecting my life. And what I tell people about this, I don't know why I don't want to share this story. So I'm going to actually go a different way. Sorry. I can share this story again, but I was at this experience doTERRA. I guess it all kind of goes together, right? With Mandy, and I just had surgery and I just spent a week. And I was probably like 4 weeks post-op. But that week, like Monday through Thursday, the event was on Friday. Like I had been using the drugs that they gave me to like escape, right? Because that's a pattern and I can't get those drugs all the time, right? And but I started to see that I was using them to escape and like not have to take care of my kids, right? And that was one of the reasons I got the surgery, is so that I could take a break, because I didn't quite know how to ask for help, or that I needed a break, or I thought I just had to suck it up. And I thought one way was having this surgery, because I'd be out for like 6 weeks, right? And not having to take care of my kids, right? um, so I was sitting at this event, and Natalie Goddard was talking, and she's one of our upline. And she was talking about how her mom passed away when she was 19, and she never dealt with the grief. She thought she did. She went on, she got married, she had one kid, she was doing fine. She had the second kid, and it just, all that grief came back, right? So much as like she couldn't take care of herself. And that really hit a pain point for me, because, and I'm going over the hour, because that's what it feels like for me. I feel like everything's so overwhelming that all I can do is just lay in bed. Like that's the best I can do right now, right? Which in my heart, I feel like I can do better, right? And I also know that, like, oh, hey Samuel. I also know, sorry, Samuel's coming up. If you're there, oh, there you are. I'm going to keep talking while he's loading up. But like, sorry, I lost train of thought. I knew that something needed to change, but I also knew that I didn't want to keep using medication to like cover up the symptoms. So when I heard this story from Natalie Goddard, what happened with her is she had all this grief come back, and her husband found somebody who, through massage and using oils and sound, could help heal people, right? And so she went in, not really like hoping, right? Having the hope that something would change. But this is where she found the power of oils. And she's like, I learned more in that hour, and I healed more in that hour than I had in the past, like 10 years. And so for me, that hit me really hard, because if these little brown bottles, right, with the liquid in it can do that, right, for her, like what can they do for me? What can they do for my son with his anger? Like what can they do for my whole family, right? Like I always feel like my family is we're just always in like angry with each other and in contention with each other. And I know that something needed to change. And so I was sitting in this event with Mandy, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Like, I don't really have anywhere else to go. And I actually felt really inspired that, like, Gretchen, like, this is the answer you've been looking for. And so I just jumped all in. So that was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But I also realized that like these oils, right? Oh, it's not gonna work. these oils are a simple, easy way to like thing to do in our lives so that we can start taking better care of ourselves. I was at another event and there was a couple up there and they talked about how they started to take care of themselves from the inside out. And that was so beautiful to me because I've spent most of my life trying to change from the outside in, right? But now I have a tool, right? I have a tool that I can use on the inside and the outside, and it's easy. It's simple. It's the small change that I can make that is going to have a big impact, right? And that's where I think I've talked about this rule of 1%, right? Like if we can change one thing at a time, 1%, something so teeny tiny that we know that we're going to do it, right? So when I feel like my body is actually like telling me to go get the oils. It's like I'll wake up in the morning and like feel a little stressed, and then my body's like, you need balance, right? And so I go and I grab balance and I smell it, or I put it on my feet. I put it on my kids' feet, right? Like I feel myself being pulled towards these oils, which I think is really cool. But these little tiny bottles, right, are going to help me change from the inside out, right? And that's the biggest reason I chose doTERRA. Another reason is because I hear a lot of you talk about, and a lot of people talk about how they're so expensive, why these, like, they're so expensive. And they do cost money, right? But that's because these are like the Gucci, the Prada, right? Like what's another big name? I'm trying to think. The Coach, right? Like of the oil industry. Like this is going to give you the most for your money. And these are the Gucci of essential oils. So of course I'm going to pick them, right? And again, like I said, like I finally feel like I found my place, and I feel like this is the best place and the place where I could have the most impact. And get my message out there, but also help other people like really truly change their lives. And I'm going to offer to you, hi, Samuel. I'm so glad you're here. And Aradna, if you're there, hi. Like I'm going to offer to you, like, find why, like really think about why you're here. Like, I know we talk about why all the time, but like, why are you picking these? Why did you pick doTERRA? Find that. And that's what you go and you share with people. Like I'm sharing this with you guys because emotions have been a big part of my life. And most of us are walking around not feeling our emotions, right? And that's the problem. We think it's all of these other things, but the problem is we've never been taught how to feel our emotions. See, I'm getting worked up now. How to feel our emotions, and we're never taught how to process them. We're taught that we have to go outside of us, outside of ourselves to solve the problem, but that is not the case. We are the answer to our solution. We have the answers. All we need to do is to tap into our own genius, to find the answers, right? Like doTERRA can help us heal from the inside out. And I think that's like in what I've found the most is that people want to heal. They want to feel better, right? Because the things that they've been using haven't been helping, right? Or they've worked, or they've stopped working, right? And we have a solution in a little brown bottle that can help people heal, right? From the inside out. And this can help people learn to manage I'm not going to say manage their emotions because that takes some work, but this has helped me stop and listen, which is easy. Listen to what my body wants, right? And so I'm just going to look at the chat really fast. Okay. Hi. Oh, there you are. And so those are my thoughts on why I picked doTERRA. Okay, so I'm gonna just teach you like the best way that I found to pick which essential oils to use, right? Because there's a lot of oils. Like over the last couple of months, I have like a lot of oils. I've had to get things that will hold my oils. I know Samuel always has like it up on the back of his bed. It shows all his oils, right? Like, but knowing like which one to use and when, and like all of those things can be really overwhelming. And again, when we feel overwhelmed, that always leads us to inaction. So what I've been doing, and what my kids have been doing, which is really fun, I'll tell you about that, is I've just been going I've been going to what I feel drawn to. So this morning it was balance, right? I'm always really drawn to lavender. I've been really drawn to this vetiver, which is a grounding blend. It comes from the vetiver root, which is a grass. And unlike most grasses, the root grows down and like deep into the earth. And that's why it's grounding, right? And I've been mixing the vetiver and the lavender together. Like I have the roll-ons of them, and I put one on one wrist and one on the other, and I just like, oh, it smells so good. I love it so much. But it's calming, and that's what I need. Like you can see on the screen, like I've been really attracted to adaptive, right? To balance, to serenity, because all of those are calming blends. And I feel like that's what I need most, and what my sons need most, what my husband needs most. And just a fun like story. So I have this little sheet. I don't know if you guys have seen these, but they're super cool. I could probably send you like a photocopy of it somehow, like scan it. But he was looking at this, and on one side it says, I want to feel more, right? Positive properties, and I want to feel less. And so he came here and he found anger. And this is my 11-year-old. He found anger and he was like, Mom, do we have citronella? And I was like, no, buddy, we don't. I'm like, why? He's like, I'm feeling anger. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, actually, I'm feeling irritated. And like, if you knew my son, that's huge for him. He is very quick to lash out. He's very quick to get angry. He's very quick to beat himself up and say negative things about himself. So the fact that like he came to this and looked at it, I was like, these are working, right? Like this is it. Like we found a solution. So, and then he went through and like, do we have forgive? Do we have whisper? Do we have Nayuli? And I was like, we're getting Nayuli tomorrow. So this was yesterday. I was like, we're getting it tomorrow. So, I just thought that was really cool. So find like just what you feel your body wants the most. And you can even just like hold it and like put it against your chest. And if you're standing, like if you start to move back, then your body doesn't need it. But if you like right now, I want to move forward, right? Which means my body needs this, right? My body wants that. So those are just some ways that you can use these essential oils. And I'm just starting with a few because it's overwhelming. And I'm starting with like what's most important for me right now. And I suggest that you guys do that as well. And again, like people always ask, well, how do I use them? Right. And the simplest question or simplest answer is in, on, and around you. Right. So the vetiver, right? Like you can put this on. You can diffuse it, right? Again, I've been putting it on my wrists. I've been putting it on the bottom of my feet, like on my big toe. I don't have my adaptive right here, but last week I taught classes at my house and I was like so jittery and like, I was like, I need adaptive. And so I just put it up here, like on my head. I've been using Serenity on my boys at night. I've got my little Serenity right here, right? Like Mandy taught me that you can put it on your fingers. And like when you have the brain chit chat, you just put it right here and just tell your brain like, hey, it's time to go to bed, right? It's time to go to bed. So I've been doing that with my sons because it usually takes them a lot to do that. And I've been using the Serenity capsules at night. And I did it last night. I didn't have to take my prescription medication to help me fall asleep, which was huge. And then yeah, so adaptive is something else that I'm just always drawn to, especially for my son too. So I'm going to pick up these soft gels. They're soft gels today to see how that helps, because that's the mental health blend. So you can just always in, on, and around you. That's when you can use it. And if you don't know, just put it in your diffuser, like just diffuse it. Let's see. And then these are just the benefits that I've seen from really the last like month or so of using these. Instead of running for the chocolate, which I talk about often, right? Like I still go to the chocolate because it tastes good and I want some, but I'm not like running into our closet to get the chocolate because I want to feel better. I start to feel something and I pause, which is so important, right? Like we're always moving so fast that again, like we don't realize what we're actually feeling or thinking or doing. And so using these oils has given me the chance to pause and like check in and say, hey, what am I feeling? What do I need? Right. And like I was holding Aroma Touch the other day and I could like feel my heart being pulled towards it. It was like, we need that. We need that. And so I put it on and I smelt it. Right. Um, I've also seen that like, because this is such a small thing to do, right? Use these little bottles. It's such a small thing to do. What I'm doing is when I use this, I'm keeping the commitments with myself, right? Which builds trust and compassion and love for ourselves. But I use these on my children at night, and I've been doing the Aroma Touch massage on their hands. I massage it on their feet, right? And in those moments, I'm building the relationships with my children, right? Like I'm physically connecting to them. They love it. I'm a lot like they go pick out the oils that they want, which is fun. And then I'm able to just help them, right? I'm able to soothe them. I'm able to just be with them in that moment. Some other things is, and in that moment of me connecting with them, like while I'm rubbing their feet, I get to enjoy them, right? And not like all of the stuff that's going on in my head has gone away. And it's like I just get to be with them and listen and connect. Um, I find that I've been more present and in tune with me as well as my children. Um, and I also just I have a tool that again heals from the inside out and is natural, right? Like our bodies know what to do with these oils. And I know that it's a tool that I can use and I can share, and I don't get scared sharing it because I'm just really passionate about it. So those are the benefits I've seen, and I know this is going longer than normal, but that's okay. Any thoughts? Like Samuel, I know you came in kind of towards the end. Let's like just take like 10 more minutes. Like any thoughts, any experiences you've had, like anything like that.
Yeah. Hi, Gretch. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to see your face.
Yeah, same here, same here. Yeah, whatever you are saying that's about oil, that's yeah, correct. That's true.
Yeah.
Because I am also using and experiencing that this oil about this oils last 6 months, more than 6 months.
Yeah.
And uh, I can know that the oils are really beneficial.
Yeah.
And that's really amazing. Uh, a few days back, I was having a that cough and cold.
Okay.
And I usually I'm allergic, and mostly when the seasons were when
Yeah.
I'm getting infected. So I'm I have I was having very bad cough. So I was using turmeric in
Okay.
hot water,
Yeah.
and so it was very beneficial for me. And
Good.
lemon, turmeric, that was I uh, I healed myself. That oil are support me to healing me, that oil. And now when from last 8 months I'm before, because of oils I am very comfortable with my health. I'm not getting any disease like irritation. Whenever I feel stress, headache, I use lavender and just rub it and move, just so it makes me very relaxed and cool. So that's whatever you think, that's true. When people will uh, using, then they will come to know what are the beneficial of these oils.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's what you guys need to share with people, right? Like,
yeah,
just share how it's affected. And people love stories. They love listening to stories. And they especially love listening to stories that give them hope, right? And so I feel like that's what we have with these oils. Like, it's a chance to give people hope, and to give us hope. Woo. So
I think I must say that the people should, it's very hard to, understand the things about it when the new things come in their life. The gaining the trust of that thing, it's very
mhm.
difficult.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, as you know about the scripture, that people in scripture is written there that so many peoples will come and they will uh, they will remove you. I mean to say, but they will remove you, and but you will know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
The scripture is saying that you will know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
So that's what, when we will taste it and we will experience that, then we'll come to know about that.
Yeah. And then you just get to share, right?
Yes, yes.
So good.
That's
I
what.
love it. I love it. How have you guys
Mm,
so I'm gonna stop the recording. Um, but I just want to check in with you guys and see how you're doing. So I'm gonna stop share, and then just to like wrap up this training again, I said it in the beginning, but just find, like, if you're struggling to share these, like, or you're scared to talk about them, like, just share what you're passionate about, share how it's helping, and people will gravitate to you, right? And those people, the people that you're looking for who need these, they're already out there. It's a matter of you attracting them, right? But you'll find them and they'll find you, if you just keep sharing, just keep using, and you can be scared and share this too. That's something, you can have the fear and you can feel the shame, you can feel all those negative emotions and still share, which is beautiful. So I'm gonna hit end record, and then I just want to check in with you guys real fast since you're here.